Peptide.
Peptides.
Peptide.
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 Peptides.
Peptides.
Today's about the peptide trend, the beauty results everyone's posting, and the part of the story that's conveniently missing from almost every one of those videos. I'm not here to tell you peptides don't work. Some clearly do something. That's not really in question. What's in question is everything downstream of, it worked for me, who's making it, what's actually in the vial, what happens to your body if it reacts badly, and whether anyone treating you would even know how to help. That's the gap this entire trend is quietly living inside, and it's the part influencers skip because it doesn't fit in a glow-up video.
If you're seeing peptides everywhere online, pause before trying them.
I'll tell you right now, a lot of the bodies you see in Hollywood films are on peptides.
So what actually is a peptide? A peptide is a short chain of amino acids, basically a mini protein your body uses to send messages from cell to cell. If your body is the hardware, peptides are the software code telling your cells what to do.
Why are so many people injecting themselves with peptides? And do they even work?
I'm on peptides and I'm on GHK, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's all the letters of the alphabet, essentially. I will say, like, I'm wearing little makeup right now. My skin is glowing. Even Marshall said, my producer, he was like, it looks like you have a full beat on. I'm like, it's the GHK, yo. My hangovers aren't as bad. When I work out, I'm not as sore, and my skin feels like more like plump and dewy.
They just had the best ROI of almost anything I've done beauty-wise is to start taking peptides, okay? And I know you've probably heard about them because I feel like everybody's talking about them, but I'm telling you, I'm looking and feeling so much better than I ever have because of it. My skin looks amazing. My energy has been crazy. Like, even though I'm drinking coffee right now, I don't even really need it because the NAD's been giving me so much energy, the glutathione and NAD both, making my skin look amazing. Like, I feel better than ever because of peptides, and I'm so excited for summer. We're about to have a hot girl summer. We're about to have a peptide summer.
Okay, so I just finished 4 weeks of GHKCU injections and 1 week of it topical, and my skin, like, what? I'm a believer.
If you guys still haven't started taking peptides, especially GHKCU, you are missing out. So for example, new growth. I've noticed my hair is getting so much thicker and fuller. My skin is glowing. My eczema has cleared. I just cannot say enough good things about GHKCU.
Take the peptides. If you're a girl and your boyfriend takes peptides, or you know someone who takes peptides, just take them. Look at my skin. Like, this is 3.5 months into taking GHK, going from cystic acne to completely clear skin.
When I was taking MT2, the tanning peptide, I had a bunch of moles pop up and I had my existing moles grow. So I had the dermatologist check them out, and there was one on my cooch particularly, freaking weird because my cooch doesn't get any sun, that was a bit large and scary and had black dots. And she was really concerned, so we scheduled a follow-up appointment to get it biopsied. And at that moment, I stopped taking MT2.
I've been taking peptides for the last 1.5 years, and if I had to choose only 3, these would be it. The first one would be GHK, otherwise known as the beauty peptide. And when I say my skin has never looked better and my hair has never grown faster, more healthy, I owe it all to GHK, no questions asked. My absolute holy grail. The second one would be NAD, and you guys have probably heard of this one because it's become quite mainstream, but NAD is an essential coenzyme that quite literally powers every single one of your cells, and NAD naturally declines with age. But what I've noticed is it just gives me way more energy. I feel like I can get out of bed easier. I don't need 75 coffees to get through the day. But also, it's just really great for general preventative aging. Last but not least, glutathione. Glutathione is your natural antioxidant, so it really just helps clear the system. And I don't know about you, but I will never give up alcohol. I love a good glass of wine. I love a good martini. Could not pay me to stop. That being said, the hangovers have gotten a little bit worse, and I've just found with glutathione, my hangovers, not as bad. Wake up feeling great.
Strip away the branding, and here's what's actually happening. Some of these peptides work by activating collagen-building enzymes, others by triggering new blood vessel growth, others by telling cells to migrate and rebuild tissue. That's genuinely why people see thicker hair, plumper skin, faster healing. The mechanism is legitimate, and this is safe to self-administer with no oversight or two different sentences. And this trend has spent a lot of energy blurring the line between them. You're not applying a cream that sits on the surface. You're switching on a biological process and trusting that it stops exactly where you want it to.
I'm officially beginning my peptide journey.
3 peptides that people are using are GHKCU, BPC157, and TB500. And they put this all together in a stack called the Glow Stack. And it's packaged as some kind of biohack, but it's not just biohacking, it's playing with your vascular DNA, and let me explain. So GHKCU acts like a copper shuttle and it activates the enzymes that cross-link your collagen, so it improves your collagen. BPC157 binds to VEGFR2 receptors, and that triggers a cascade that increases nitrogen oxide, which leads to new blood vessel formation, a process called angiogenesis. TB500 binds to G-actin, which basically tells your cells to migrate and rebuild their structure. But here's the catch, and here's what you need to take into account if you're thinking of taking these things. VEGF activity can feed an undiagnosed tumour. So as we said before, it increases blood vessel formation, and that's good for healing, but it's not good for tumours. It essentially helps cancers bypass your body's natural defence systems. So you're basically taking growth factors without any medical oversight. And add into the fact that 60% of these peptides that are being sold online do not contain what they claim to contain. So if you're thinking about using peptides, at least research what they actually do and what the risks are. Don't just listen to your favourite influencer.
If you're seeing peptides everywhere online, pause before trying them. If you're in perimenopause, it's understandable to be curious about peptides. Fatigue, brain fog, joint pain, and stubborn weight gain make quick fixes tempting. But here's what really matters. Many peptides are being sold online and they're off market, not FDA approved, and they're not backed by human clinical trials, especially in women. These compounds are often produced without regulation, consistent dosing, or safety oversight. This means purity, contamination, and long-term effects are simply unknown.
They're not tested very well, right? It's all basically based on mice and rat data. So the medical evidence and support really isn't there. But as a physician, I would tell people they're drugs, you shouldn't use them. But then that didn't stop anybody. The cat's out of the bag. People are not going to stop using peptides. They're amazingly effective for some people. For other people, they don't work at all. The problem is we as physicians, we haven't been able to study them very closely. And the FDA is never going to study them. And drug companies, pharmaceutical companies, are never going to test them because no one wants to spend $2 billion researching and approving a drug that you can't have a patent on.
Here's the part that should matter more than it does. A large share of what's sold online doesn't reliably contain what the label says, isn't FDA approved, and hasn't gone through human trials, especially not on women. Most of what exists is animal data. Nobody's rushing to fix that either because a real clinical trial costs close to $2 billion and no company wants to fund that for something they can't patent and control. So what you're left with is a market running almost entirely on trust in a seller you found online. Trust that the dosage is right. Trust that whatever showed up in your package is actually what you ordered. One physician was blunt about it. As a doctor, you tell people not to touch these.
I tried a peptide and it sent me to the hospital. Weird part is I've been taking peptides for years. Bodybuilders have been using them for a long time. Biohackers are into them. Coaches prescribed me them before and never had any issues. I've either seen positive benefits or haven't noticed anything at all. So anyway, I tried Motzi. Maybe within 20 minutes or less, I started feeling really, really weird. Kind of like that flushed feeling you get with melanotan, but then legs were really restless. When you stretch in the morning and you have that good morning stretch and it feels really good, that sensation in your legs. Was that sensation, but just nonstop. It was little baby throw-ups in your mouth. I was riding it out until those became violent throw-up. It wasn't a baby throw-up. It was running to my toilet and hovering over it, just feeling terrible. Didn't stop. It just got worse as time went on. We had to drive to the hospital and I threw up on the way there. We were on the freeway, so I stuck my head out the window and I tried so hard to push it out, but it just, no, when we parked, it was all over the side of the car. Feeling god awful. I just also can't get comfortable. I can't even be in a fetal position in peace because everything is just so uncomfortable and still like restless and trembling. And then I started feeling really nauseous again. So I threw up again in the waiting room. I had taken the Motzi, fasted, and then had breakfast. And so then I had thrown up all of my breakfast at this point. So it's just bile. Told them that I had taken the Motzi that morning. And so the doctor wanted to check my glucose because I guess like a big thing is that you hypoglycemic. So my glucose was great. So then the doctor comes in. He's familiar with peptides. It was cool. He was actually very like well studied on the topic. Told me that once it's in your system, they can't get it out. You basically just have to write it out. So they just give you Zofran to deal with the nausea. The fluids are your best friend. So like as long as you can keep fluids down, that's like the main thing. My spine and head were pounding. So they gave me a Toradol shot to help with that since they can't give you anything like to swallow since it'll probably mess up your stomach. Didn't feel any better at all until I got back home and just knocked out. Still couldn't eat anything, but had a bunch of bone broth. Essentially just had a really severe reaction to a peptide, but it was honestly one of my worst reactions to anything. So yeah, safe to say that Motzi and I are just not friends.
My friend almost died on July 3rd from anaphylactic shock 5 minutes after injecting an injectable peptide. She's a competitive athlete. She's a volunteer firefighter. She's 34 years old and she's very healthy. And she's been taking injectable peptides for at least a year now. This particular peptide that she had the reaction from was called Sermorelin, or some people call it Cimarillin. And she had been taking that for a few months leading up to this event. She has also taken other peptides previously, and in the past she has had mild reactions to different peptides, mostly at the injection site, some to include light hives or feeling flushed, a little bit of nausea, but nothing serious. Her reaction was incredibly severe, so severe that we had to take her to the hospital. She had mild seizures. She lost her bowel movements, and her bladder also ejected urine while she was passed out. When she came to, before we got to her to the ER, she threw up a lot. She had extreme blurred vision. She felt like she couldn't see. She wasn't sure where she was. It was really bad. We got her to the hospital, and then at the hospital, she flatlined. So incredibly serious. She is okay now. But I wanted to make this video, like I said, for anybody who's considering this. I ended up going deep into lots of different forums because all I could find on peptides was that there aren't very many reactions, but I eventually did find a number of forums that had dozens of entries of people who had similar reactions, some ranging from full body hives that made it feel like their skin was crawling, all the way up to more severe anaphylactic shock-like symptoms.
The absence of documented risk isn't the same thing as the absence of risk. It just means nobody's required to report it.
One life-threatening side effect of peptides is anaphylaxis, which is an allergic reaction that causes your throat to swell and you can't breathe. And I wish more people talked about this, especially the people that are out here peddling peptides. So I would say the top 3 guardrails to have in place if you're experimenting with peps is 1, Benadryl, 2, an EpiPen, and 3, medical insurance in case you need to go to the ER.
There's so much hype now. And my biggest concern isn't that they don't work. I mean, peptides work if it's a legit peptide. The problem is like 99% of all these peptides are being sourced in like China. And, they're full of all sorts of contaminants. There've been some studies looking at that. So unless you're like getting a GLP-1 from like a physician, that there's a couple of compounding pharmacies in the US that are making, GLP-1s for like some of the big guys. But like all these like BPC 157 and all the Repair and Wolverine and all that, like this is Wild West, man. This is like, the concern is like, what are you injecting?
This is the part I think deserves more attention than it gets. Cancer cells share a specific set of traits, and one of the biggest is the ability to grow their own blood vessels to keep feeding themselves. That process, angiogenesis, is the exact mechanism some of these peptides are designed to trigger in the name of faster healing. That doesn't mean peptides cause cancer. Nobody serious is claiming that. It means if there's something already growing quietly in someone's body that hasn't been diagnosed yet, flooding your system with growth signals isn't neutral. It's feeding whatever's already there, whether you know it's there or not.
I'm Dr. Christie. My PhD is in molecular and cellular oncology, and I also work in cancer genomics. Now, back when I was starting grad school, there was a paper that came out, and it changed basically how we think about cancer. This paper is called The Hallmark of Cancer. I was thinking about how I take this for granted. I understand the mechanisms of cancer, but a lot of people in the peptide community haven't studied this and don't know. So I wanted to share this because I think it's very helpful addressing this conversation that we're always having about peptides versus cancer. So this paper outlined 6 traits that basically all cancer cells share. And that's they have the ability to evade anti-growth signals, and then they can turn on growth signals by themselves. They also can evade cell death or apoptosis. They have a limitless ability to divide and replicate. They can grow their own blood vessels. That's the angiogenesis. They have the ability to invade other tissues and metastasize to other sites. So together, all of these hallmarks, and I think there's some more hallmarks that recently got added, but I think these are enough to understand. So together, these explain how normal cells can basically transform into malignant cancer cells. Now, why am I bringing this up in the context of peptides? Because peptides can use these same cellular pathways that cancer hijacks. Peptides cancer cells can basically utilize these same pathways. For example, like peptides that promote healing, they can act on growth factors or signaling pathways or inflammation. These are areas that cancer cells also has the ability to manipulate, survive, and spread. Does not mean at all that peptides cause cancer. I'm not saying that at all, but it's just a reminder that our human biology is very complex, it's very interconnected, and that, again, these same mechanisms that could regenerate tissue under the wrong circumstances, if there's already a cancer cell there, it can fuel that uncontrolled growth. It can help the cancer do what it does.
I personally do not think it is smart to take peptides. I made a video about this and people kept comparing it to creatine, like saying, oh, but creatine isn't FDA regulated, and so why should peptides be? And scientifically, this comparison makes no sense. So let's talk about peptides. Hi, my name's Sam and I'm a biological engineer, and I'm using my science knowledge to make that bodies even better. Let's get into it. Firstly, creatine is one of the most studied sports supplements on Earth. It's a small molecule that your body already makes and you swallow it. That means when it goes in your digestive system, it has to go through organs like your liver and your stomach, which will process it before it ever enters your bloodstream. Whereas a lot of peptides, people are literally injecting them, which absolutely completely changes the risk profile. Because now you're bypassing one of the body's normal protective barriers. And you are directly introducing biological active compounds into tissue or blood. And peptides are not at all the same thing. Some of these are marketed online with claims like muscle growth, fat loss, anti-aging, healing, or even other hormone-related effects. And the thing is, like, they may work. I don't really care about that. The thing I care about is the safety data. And a lot of these compounds have very limited long-term human safety data. And there are some products online have actually been found in studies to be containing the wrong dosage. They have impurities, contamination, or sometimes not even the peptide listed on the label at all. And peptides have real biological effects, people. Some interact with human growth hormone pathways, insulin signaling, appetite signaling, immune pathways, and more. So this is absolutely not in the same scope as taking a creatine monohydrate in a shaker bottle. Doctors are honest that with something like a GLP-1, they at least understand the general mechanism well enough to respond if something goes sideways. With most of these gray market peptides, they don't. There's no antidote, no established protocol, because these are signaling molecules, and once a pathway gets switched on, there's often no way to switch it back off. It just has to run its course. In the worst version of that, a tanning peptide overstimulates melanin production until a mole turns cancerous within weeks, and the only response is cutting it out, because one cell growth won't stop on its own. That's what the word cancer means. That's not a hypothetical. That's what an actual ER visit for this can look like when there's no roadmap for how to help you. This isn't corporate medicine being replaced by something purer. It's a newer, less regulated industry getting a say in grading its own homework, with almost no oversight on where the actual product is being manufactured or how consistently.
All that's to say, on the danger of the gray market peptide trend, if you are using these and something goes wrong and you decide to come into the ER, like GLP-1s, GLP-2s, GLP-3s, we are familiar with these medications. We roughly know how they work. That doesn't mean we can reverse them if something goes wrong. But these other peptides, like all of the random, I don't even know, there's so many random peptides I keep seeing online. If you overdose yourself on these or something goes wrong or there's some bad side effect and you come into the ER or the hospital, we don't know how to fix you. Like, we are all flying completely blind. We don't know the mechanism of these. We don't know exactly what we're doing. We don't know how to fix it. They're very well could not be any way how to fix it, because a lot of these, they're signaling molecules. So once they're in your system and they start signaling a certain pathway, whatever it is, we can't stop it. Like, they have to just run their course and wear out, and that's it. When you're thinking about what could go wrong with these things, you might not have help. You might not have anyone that knows any way how to fix you, because there's no research. There's no research on side effects. There's no research on how to treat side effects. It's just not there. For example, like the melanotan, the MT1, the MT2, if your body goes into a crazy overproduced signaling pathway and you're overproducing melanin and you have a mole that turns into skin cancer in 2 weeks, no one can stop that. They just have to cut it out. And maybe that specific signaling site in your skin of the melanin overproduction, cell overproduction and overproliferation, by definition, if it goes wrong and it keeps going and it doesn't stop, that is cancer.
Somebody just said peptides ? Everybody I know in the entire greater Los Angeles area is on a peptide. I have sat with many different women who are like on peptides. They're on Ozempic. I am literally probably one of very few women that is not on a GLP-1, and I am not on any sort of peptide. I am so terrified to just start injecting shit into my body that I don't know what it is. I don't know how it's going to make me feel. And like, really, not to be this like crotchety old lady, but like, what happens long term? Like, what are this fountain of youth that we're just like injecting into our veins? Like, what happens? Like, in 10 years, 15 years, it's like, oh, the peptide you took that was blah, blah, blah is like now causing cancer. I just don't want to go near that.
For the last couple of weeks, all I've been seeing on TikTok is women in their late 20s and 30s promoting peptides, promoting how shiny it makes their hair look, how glowy their skin looks, how fast their nails are growing, but not speaking about the dangers of peptides and not speaking about the right channels to find peptides. Look, I'm not against peptides if it is done through the right channels. If you're going for a blood test beforehand, if a doctor is prescribing them, and if you're doing follow-up blood tests throughout that journey also. But these women aren't talking about the dangers of peptides. They're not talking about the hormonal imbalance. They're not talking about peptides triggering things like endometriosis and cancer. They're not talking about allergic reactions. They're not talking about how each organ in your body is handling these peptides you're injecting into yourself.
I cannot be the only one who does not believe in peptides. Let's talk about it. Lunch is never free. There are so many influencers like promoting this or on this. It's like all over my free page. And when I look up the dangers, I literally can't find any information. But like, this cannot be healthy. This is basically like steroid drugs. I met this guy that like sells them and he tried to get me like on that. So I looked them up. And tell me why I was tempted. Like, I was like looking at Reddit and I was like, oh my God, this looks so... Snap out of it.
This is objectively terrible. So a woman has now died from NAD injections in the Bronx. Earlier this year, 2 women landed themselves in the hospital when they were injected with peptides at a Vegas conference. Anyone who does not trust Big Pharma, who does not trust the FDA, I want you to know that right now there is a panel happening on peptides, and they are evaluating whether a couple of peptides should be allowed into the market. And guess who's on the panel? 6 of them are people with financial interests in selling peptides. This is not allowed in most panels. You are not allowed to have financial interests. And so for all the hemming and the hawing about how corrupt the FDA is because they're all paid off by Big Pharma and doctors are all paid off by Big Pharma, we're watching America's health be co-opted by big wellness.
The cat's out of the bag. People are not going to stop using peptides.
What actually bothers me watching this trend isn't that people are curious about peptides. It's what the content is choosing to leave out. The video shows shinier hair and clearer skin. They don't mention hormonal shifts. They don't mention the peptides that have been connected to conditions like endometriosis. They don't mention allergic reactions. And they definitely don't walk you through blood work before or after. There is a responsible version of this, a doctor prescribing it, labs before you start, follow-up testing along the way. That version exists. It's just almost never the version going viral because monitoring and caution don't make for a satisfying 15-second clip. So here's where I actually land on this. Peptides aren't fake, and I'm not going to pretend the results people are showing are all imagined. Some of these compounds do exactly what they're marketed to do. But it worked was never the hard question. The hard question is what's actually in the vial. Who's making sure of that? And what happens to you if your body reacts the way a small but real number of people's already have? Right now, the honest answer is almost nobody's making sure of anything. The market is mostly unregulated. The people deciding its future have a financial reason to keep it that way. And if something goes wrong, doctors are often working without a map. That's not fear-mongering. That's just what's true underneath the glow. None of that means everyone doing this is being careless. Some people are doing it exactly right, with a doctor and real oversight. But if the reason you're considering it is a video, it's worth asking where the peptide is actually coming from, whether anyone's tested what's in it, and whether you'd know what to do, or who would if your body didn't respond the way the influencers did. Because the appeal is obvious. Better skin, more energy, faster healing, sold with the same tone as a new moisturizer. But it isn't one. It's a live instruction sent into your bloodstream, and nobody selling you the glow is required to tell you what happens if your body reads it wrong. So tell me, has this changed how you think about the trend, or does the upside still outweigh the risk for you? And if you've already tried it, was anyone actually monitoring you while you did? Because the cat's already out of the bag. People aren't going to stop using peptides. The least this conversation can do is stop pretending the risk isn't part of the price.